Lesson 12, the Vedas and Glossary. Students of the Hindu philosophies and religious systems meet with frequent and constant allusions to the Vedas and Upanishads, the sacred books of India, but as a rule find little or no description or explanation of what the Vedas or Upanishads are, of what they consist, or of their history. We have thought it advisable to give our students a brief description and account of the Vedas and Upanishads in this lesson. The Vedas, generally speaking, may be defined as the Hindu sacred books comprising the Hindu scriptures, viz., Rig Veda, the Yajur Veda, the Samaveda, the Atharva Veda, and also the Brahmanas in the Upanishads, and also comprising the poems, hymns, sacred literature, rituals, and general religious philosophy of the Hindu religious systems. But strictly speaking, the term the Vedas is used to designate merely the sacred scriptures of the Hindus, which we shall now consider. The Vedas have a most ancient origin, their early history fading into the days before history. There are accounts of the sacred writings extending back for several thousand years, but before this time there were evidently still older manuscripts, and before the constant verbal transmission of the sacred teachings from mouth to ear, from father to son, from teacher to student, which has always been the custom in Oriental countries. There are over 100 of these sacred books, but their base is found in the four Vedas, known as the Rig Veda, the Yajur Veda, the Samaveda, and the Atharva Veda. The Rig Veda is considered the oldest of the four Vedas, and is probably the most important. It consists of over 1,000 great hymns, of extraordinary length, and chiefly concerning ceremonial worship and ritualistic rites of devotion. These hymns are arranged into 10 books, called Mandala, 6 of which are family books, that is, are written by some sage or poet in the first place, and then added to by his descendants. The subjects treated in the Rig Veda are numerous, mythology being strongly in evidence, the successive stages of the work showing the growth of the mythology of the Hindus, and also showing how some of the more elementary and simple conceptions of the earlier Hindus developed in systems of gods and demigods. The Yajur Veda is devoted principally to ritualism or sacerdotalism. Its form is metrical, as a rule, although certain forms of prose appear at times. The influence of the Rig Veda is noticeable in it, and the latter is regarded in it as authoritative. The Yajur Veda concerns itself with sacrifice, priestly functions, ceremonial of worship, the machinery of the church. In fact, very little of philosophy, metaphysics, or spiritual teaching being found therein, formalism, ritual and ceremony being the themes. The Samaveda has been called the Veda of hymns, which indeed it is. It comprises many verses, melodies, librettos, and naming of pious exclamatory words which were interjected into the singing, in the manner of the exhortations and pious exclamations manifested by some of the Christian sects during the prayers or sermons of others, such as Amen, Glory to God, Praise the Lord, etc., which practice was common among the early Hindus, and even to this day is found among some of their sects, in which ardent enthusiasm is encouraged. The Atharva Veda has been called the Veda of psychic powers, for the reason that it devotes much attention to the various methods regarded as conducive to the development of supernormal faculties, senses, and powers. There is mention of both the low as well as the high use of the powers, the discussion ranging from highest forms of psychic power to the lowest forms of witchcraft, sorcery, and black magic, the habit of the Hindu mind being toward thoroughness, the logical conclusion being sought after without fear or hesitation. The books composing the Atharva Veda, some 20 in number, contain countless recipes and formula for blessings, curses, charms, incantations, magical ceremonies, invocations, evocations, etc., etc., far exceeding in variety and detail any of the similar writings of the Hebrews, Greeks, etc., and showing to what extent the human mind may travel along these lines. But strange to say, among this mass of methods, etc., there appear certain portions of the work touching upon high ideas, thoughts and speculations, having evidently been written about the same time, and included with the other work by reason of the period of their writing, rather than by any relationship or connection of thought. The modern Hindu, and in fact the Hindus for many centuries past, have recognized a decided division between the parts of the Atharva Veda, separating them into divisions corresponding to the Western terms of white magic and black magic respectively. The Brahmanas. There are many schools of interpretations of the Vedas, each of which have many commentaries arising from the interpretations. Proceeding from these differences appeared the several Brahmanas, which are in the nature of theological commentaries concerning the Vedas, more particularly in the matter of forms, ceremonies, creeds, etc., accompanied by a copious reference to the original books, and a quoting of texts in a manner familiar to those familiar with the customs of the Western sects and denominations. From these original Brahmanas developed a later form of commentaries which are known as the Aranyakas, or forest treatises, named after the teachers who wrote them and who dwelt in the forests. These works are of a higher character than the earlier Brahmanas, and are of a mystical character and touch upon the higher phases of the Hindu religious thought. These works may be considered as a connecting link between the Brahmanas and the Upanishads. The two important Aranyakas are known as the Aitra, and the Taittiriya, respectively. The Upanishads. The term Upanishad means, literally, a sitting down beside, or what in the West would be called a heart-to-heart instruction. The word is also used as meaning the esoteric doctrine. The general use of the word, however, is as the designation for the end of the Vedas, that is, for the philosophical writing which conclude the general Vedas, or sacred books of India. The Upanishads are devoted to theological, philosophical and metaphysical speculation, argument, discussion, teaching and consideration, whereas the Vedas proper, the Brahmanas and the Aranyakas, see previous reference in this lesson, are devoted rather to mythological, ritualistic, ceremonial subjects than to those treated in the Upanishads. The earlier sacred books devote themselves to explaining the religious, ethical, and ecclesiastical duties, together with a reference to supernormal powers in one case, but the Upanishads devote themselves chiefly to a consideration of the nature of man and the universe, and their relation to the infinite being. The Upanishads reach much higher planes of human thought and reasoning than do the earlier books, and are decidedly the writings preferred by the Hindu philosophers and metaphysicians, although priests naturally prefer the earlier works which are nearer to their profession and calling, and, consequently, nearer to their hearts. The Upanishads are closely related to the Aranyakas, and are often found either embedded in their substance or else forming their conclusion, showing their common origin among the forest sages. And both the Aranyakas and the Upanishads are frequently found at the end of some of the Brahmanas. So from the early Vedas to the latest Upanishads there is an unbroken line of continuity and relationship. And, accordingly, the general term the Vedas is applied to all of these sacred books or writings. The date of the earlier Upanishads is unknown, but it is certain that the oldest ones antedate the Christian era by over 1,000 years, probably by many more centuries than even that time. The older Upanishads belong to the original Veda school, while some of the later have schools founded upon themselves. Perhaps the two most important of the Upanishads are the Brihadaranyaka, and the Chandogya, respectively, both of which belong to the Vedic school. Other important Upanishads are the following: the Aitra, the Kausataki, the Taittiriya, the Kathaka, the Maitrayana, or Manava, the Kana, the Tilavakara, the Isa, the Svatasvatara, the Mahanara, the Prasna, the Mandukya, and many others of more or less importance and popularity and authority. In fact, there are about 235 Upanishads considered to carry authority with them and known to the Hindus today, besides which there are many shorter and secret writings respected and treasured by some of the sects and schools of India, and which never have been allowed to be translated, and many of which are never committed to print, but are passed along verbally, or else in private copies written by hand. The Hindus hold that the canon of the Upanishads is not closed, and that the future may add to the number of the admitted books. In the Upanishads will be found the entire system of the Hindu philosophical and religious thought, in its many forms and varieties of interpretation. It is the largest collection of philosophical writings in the world, ancient or modern, and moreover the subject is considered with such wonderful subtlety of analysis and detail, that it is thought to include every possible variation of metaphysical thought of man up to the present time. That is, no other nation has ever been able to form a metaphysical conception that is without its counterpart. 1. Some of the Upanishads. The Upanishads stand as a monumental memorial to the energy, persistency and keenness of the Hindu metaphysical mind. But this fact has its weakness as well as its strength, and just as it is often said in the West that one may prove anything, or disprove anything, by texts from the Bible, so in India every sect, school, or division of thought is able to fortify itself with authoritative texts from the Vedas or Upanishads, proving each position and disproving the others. But nevertheless, there is a fundamental agreement upon basic principles, and between the lines of all may be read the words of the inner teachings, and those teachings all have as their essence the truth. There is but one and one only. Explanation of Hindu terms. One of the difficulties of the Western student of Hindu philosophies and religious systems has been the lack of understanding of the technical Sanskrit terms used in the works on these subjects. Accordingly, we have thought it desirable to issue a plain, simple, glossary or partial dictionary, containing a definition of, and short explanation of, the technical Sanskrit terms used in our lessons, and in other works on the subject. This glossary does not claim to give an authoritative, academical, definition of the terms, but rather a plain explanation of each term, stated as clearly, and as simply as possible. There has been no attempt toward academical preciseness, or technical exactness in this glossary, the sole desire and intent having been to enable the student to know what the term means in English. The definitions given are free, rather than in the exact, precise style and form of the scholastic teachers of Sanskrit. Pronunciation. It is almost impossible to give in English an exact key to pronunciation of the Sanskrit. The Sanskrit, you know, is the ancient language of the Hindus, a most classical and polished language now employed only in the literary work and sacred writings of India, and not in common use in that country, the popular, common, dialects having superseded it. Sanskrit is highly technical and difficult, and even its correct pronunciation is possible only to the advanced scholar, even in India. Its finer shades, and distinctions, are beyond the ordinary student, particularly of the West, and we have made no attempt to give them here. We have thought it better to confine ourselves, and our students, to the general rules of pronunciation, which are all that are necessary for the casual reader and student. The following are the general rules of pronunciation of Sanskrit words. A has the sound of a in arm, far, or father. It has also a secondary sound of u in butter, up, bud, etc. The general English pronunciation used is that of the first sound, as in arm, slightly sliding in the direction of the second sound, as in but, the result being the sound of the last a in Philadelphia, or the a in mutable, villa, salary, etc. E has the sound of a in fate, name, gay, etc. I has the sound of I in ill, pit, admit, etc., sliding into the sound of I in machine, pique, intrigue, etc. Derived from the French, which is akin to the E in C. U has the sound of U in put, pull, push, etc., rather than that of the OA in to. S generally has the sound of S in sat, son, sister, etc., although there is another use of it giving the sound of SH in ship. For instance, Shiva is pronounced Shiva, not Siva, but generally SH is used in the words having this SH sound, for instance, Shiva, instead of Shiva. CH has the sound of CH in rich, and not the K sound. C, without the H, is generally sounded as K, not as S. I is generally sounded as I in light, fine, bright, etc. The other letters generally are sounded as in English. Glossary. Abhada. Sameness, not distinct separateness. Non-abhava. The principle of non-existence without qualities. Abha. Non-covetousness, non-revengeful, non-vainglorious. Akriya. A guru, spiritual teacher, etc. Of high rank. Adarsa. A mental mirror, psychic vision. Adadivika. Supernatural, above ordinary experience. Adhikari. A worthy student of truth. Aditi. Infinity. Aditya. The Sunday. Adityas. The 12 planetary spirits. Adharma. Unrighteous, lacking virtue. Advaita. Non-dualistic, monistic. The designation of the monistic sect of the Vedanta. Adhyasa. Reflection of an outside object, the chameleon quality of taking on appearances, hence the illusory aspect of things. Aham. The ego, the I. Hamkara, egoism, self-consciousness, the sattva or principle of self-consciousness. Ahara, the drawing in of nourishment for body or mind. Ajna, the sixth lotus of the yoga teachings of Patanjali, situated in the center of the brain, just back of the eyebrows, also used in the sense of divine perception. Ajnata, one possessing divine wisdom, or superhuman psychic perception. Akasha, the universal ether, which pervades all space, Akhanda, whole undivided, Akhanda Satchitananda, the undivided existence knowledge bliss absolute the knowledge of which is perceived in Samadhi, Alambana, contemplation on outward things, Amritattvam, immortality, Anahata, the fourth lotus of the Yoga of Patanjali, situated in Sushumna, directly in line with the heart, Ananda, absolute bliss, Antakarana, the internal organ of the mind, including the deliberative faculty, the determinative faculty, and the self-conscious principle, Anubhava, realization, Anumana, inference, Apana, the nerve currents governing the excretory organs, one of the five manifestations of prana, Apariprajaksha, psychic sensing, beyond the realm of sensuousness, Aparavanya, knowledge of externals, as contrasted with knowledge of internals, superficial knowledge, Apis, the element of water, Apta, one who has attained illumination, Apura, merit, Arjavam, directness in intention, straightforwardness, Arupa, formless, Asamprajnata, the extreme and highest state of superconsciousness, Asana, posture, bodily attitude assumed during meditation, the third step in Patanjali's yoga system, Asat, non-being, non-existence, Asvada, psychic taste or faculty of taste, Asti, to exist, to be, Atikranvitavinaya, meditation leading up to and culminating in the state of Samadhi, or transcendental consciousness, or ecstasy, Atman, the spirit, the real self, Om, or Om, a symbolic holy word signifying the absolute idea, Avarana, the outward sheaths of the mind, Avatara or avatar, a divine incarnation, an incarnation of deity in human form, Avidya, ignorance, Avyaktam, undifferentiated state or condition of Prakriti, or nature, before there is a manifestation, Bhagavad Gita, a sacred book of India, or Upanishad, Bhagavan, a high title denoting all-powerful, all-wise, all-inclusive, generally applied only to the highest teachers, Bhakta, an ardent lover of God, a Bhakti Yogi, Bhakti, ardent love of God, Bhakti Yoga, the Yoga, or doctrine of the love of God, Bhakti Yogi, a disciple of Bhakti Yoga, Bhavana, meditation, thoughtful reverie, Veda, separateness, lack of unity, Bhikshu, a Buddhist mendicant monk, Bhaga, sensuousness, sensual pleasure, Bhutas, the gross elements of nature, Brahma, the personified conception of Brahm, the conception of deity as the creating God, the creative deity of the orthodox Hindu trinity, Brahm, the absolute, that the one existence, the primal being God, in the highest sense of the term, Brahmavanya, the knowledge of the absolute supreme wisdom, the highest knowledge, Brahman, a member of the highest caste of India, twice born, according to the Hindu term, Buddha, the great founder of the Buddhist philosophy, and held to be an incarnation of Brahm by some Gautama Buddha, who lived about BC 600. Buddhi, the determinative faculty of the mind, the determinative principle arising from Prakriti by reason of the involvement of Purusha. Chaitanya, pure intelligence, also the name of a high Hindu teacher, who lived about 1500 AD, and who is regarded by some as an incarnation or avatar of Krishna. Charvaka, a materialist, the Hindu term for one who rejects the spiritual philosophies. Chidakasa, the mental space, in which the advanced soul perceives knowledge of the universe. Chitta, mind stuff, or the subtle elements from which mind is evolved or manifested. Chittakasha, the area or space of the mind. Dhamma, control of the organs of the senses and the body. Dhya, gross matter. Drava, the ultimate substance of Canada's philosophy. Devas, the angelic beings, who were originally human beings, but who have advanced in the spiritual scale into a state of semi-divinity, the shining ones, according to the Hindu popular term. Devakan, the heaven world. Devaloka, the higher regions or planes. Dharana, concentration, one-mindedness. The yoga sixth step. Dharma, duty, virtue, the path of right action. Dhyana, meditation on the divine. The yoga seventh step. Dhyana marga, the path of knowledge through meditation. Veda, the dualistic school of philosophy, opposed to Advaita. Vedas, the pairs of opposites, or dual aspects of nature, such as heat and cold, pleasure and pain, high and low, sharp and dull, etc. The polarities of natural objects. Vsha, hatred, dislike, aversion, repulsion. Ekagra, a state of concentration. Ekam, one, hence. Ekanistha, or devotion to one ideal. Akanda bhakti, or single love for God. Ekamivadam, or monism in philosophy. Eka ayana, or the one support of the universe, that is, God. Gautama, the founder of Buddhism, the Buddha. Jnana, wisdom. Jnana Yoga, the yoga of wisdom. Gautama, the founder of the Nyaya philosophy. Grahana, sense perception. Gunas, the three qualities or prakriti, or nature. See lesson on the Sankhya system. Guru, a spiritual teacher, term of great respect. Hatha Yoga, the yoga of physical well-being, or physical control, the aim of which is physical perfection, or the preparing of a worthy temple of the spirit, but which, when perverted, is applied to the degrading and abnormal practices, austerities, and self-torture of the fakirs and false yogis of India. Hatha Yogi, a follower or practitioner of Hatha Yoga. A mystic word used in meditation, as in the sacred verse, Om, Mani, Padme, Hum. Ida, the left-sided nerve current, the left nostril. Indra, the king of the gods, in the ancient Hindu mythology. Indriyas, the internal organs of the mind. Ishtanishta, devotion to one's highest ideals. Ishwara, the personal god, the logos that emerge, the universal Purusha, sometimes used as the highest personification of the absolute possible to the mind of man, the absolute in itself being incapable of conception or thought. Jaimini, the founder of the Pravimamsa philosophy. Jiva, the individual life, or individual soul. Jiva Atman, the Atman in its manifestation of Jivas. Kaivalya, isolation from the material world. Oneness with the absolute. Kala, time. Kalpa, a cycle of time. Kama, desire, passion, sense, longing. Kanada, the founder of the Vaishya philosophy. Kapila, the founder of the Sankhya system of philosophy, the great teacher of evolution in India. Karma, action, also the effects resulting from action, also the law of spiritual cause and effect, which underlies the Hindu philosophies and religions. Karma Yoga, the yoga of work, or action, or duty well performed without hope of reward. Karma Yogi, a disciple of Karmayoga. Khanda, differentiated, divided, separated, or the action which separates, divides, or differentiates. Krishna, an incarnation of Vishnu, an avatar of deity, a great teacher who lived about 1400 BC, and whose general teachings are stated in the Bhagavad Gita. The term is also used by the Vaishnavas, or worshippers of Krishna, as the name of the Absolute or that, as well as in the sense of the personified deity. Kamaka, the retention of the breath in the practice of pranayama. Kundalini, the subtle nerve energy, or concentrated psychic force, located in the lotus at the base of the spinal column, and which, when aroused, develops the psychic and spiritual powers of the yojana. Linga Sharira, subtle body. Etheric body. Maha, great. Mahakasha, great space. Mahapurusha, a great soul, generally applied to an incarnation, or avatar, or sometimes to a great sage or teacher. Mahat, universal consciousness, the term literally meaning the great one. Mahatattva, the great principle of consciousness first evolved and proceeding from Prakriti, according to the Sankhya philosophy. Manas, the deliberative or reasoning faculty of the mind. Mantram, an affirmation, prayer, holy word, verse, thought, idea, etc., expressed in words, or meditated upon in the form of words, during worship, meditation, or concentration. Manipura, the third lotus of the yoga of Patanjali, which is situated directly opposite to the navel, on the Sushumna, along the spinal column. Maya, illusion, the unreal appearance of nature, the phenomenal cloak or covering of the absolute, which is not real but exists merely as an appearance, phantasmagoria. Mimamsa, the name of two schools of the Hindu philosophy, viz., the Purvamimamsa and the Uttaramimamsa, generally known as the Vedanta. Moksha, the state of liberation, emancipation, freedom, divine absorption, etc., often used in the same sense as nirvana. Mukti, deliverance, or emancipation from samsara, or rebirth. Muladhara, the basic or first lotus of the yoga of Patanjali, situated at the base of the spinal column, the termination of the spinal cord, in which the kundalini is stored or coiled up. Nada Brahma, the sacred word Om, or Om, which was the first vibration of the newly created universe. Namarupa, name and form. Netai, not this, the term used by the teachers in describing that, which is considered as not this to everything that is, as a something that is no thing. Nirvalambana, without support, an extremely high state of meditation, in the yoga praktos. Nirbija, without seed, the highest possible form of samadhi, or yoga superconsciousness, in which the seed of karma is killed, and the soul is no longer bound to samsara. Nirguna, without gunas, that is, without qualities or attributes. Nishkama karma, actions performed unselfishly, from duty, and without desire or hope of reward according to the teachings of Karma Yoga. Nitya, eternal without end, permanent, indestructible. Nirvana, the state of emancipation, or freedom from samsara, or rebirth, a state of absorption by the divine generally used by the Buddhists, but sometimes by the Hindus. Nirvichara, without discrimination, or preference. Nirvikalpa, without change in time, changeless duration, a lesser eternity. Nishtha, oneness of attachment, singleness of attraction. Nili, fate, necessity, determinism. Nama, religious duty consisting of inward and outward purity, right thought, right action, contentment, avoidance of luxury, vanity, and sensuousness, performance of religious duty, etc. The second step of the Yoga of Patanjali. Nyaya, the philosophical system of Gautama. See the lesson on the three minor systems. Ojas, the subtle energy of the system, conserved by continence and purity. Om, or Omkara, see Om. Om Tat Saturday, a sacred expression of the Hindus, applied to that, and meaning thou art the supreme and absolute being, wisdom, and Blistat meaning that, and Sat meaning being, and Om meaning the term for that, including his absolute aspects. Vidartha, a category, or ultimate classification. Para, supreme, greatest, highest, superlative term used as a prefix. Para Atman, the supreme spirit. Parabhakti, supreme love of God. Parabrahm, Brahman considered in its absolute aspect, devoid of manifestation or emanation, Brahman itself. Paranirvana, the supreme nirvana, which by many is held to mean absolute extinction or nothingness, but which the inner teachings hold to be absolute absorption in that and infinite consciousness. Paramahamsa, supreme soul, or being. Paravanya, supreme wisdom, or knowledge. Parvati, the wife of Shiva, in the ancient mythologies. Patanjali, the founder of the yoga system of the Hindu philosophy, who lived about 200 BC. Pingala, the right side nerve current, the left nostril. Viras, the forefathers, or ancestors, highly venerated by the Hindus and all Orientals, and generally held to exercise a watchful interest over their descendants. Pradhana, nature, or primordial element. Prajna, divine wisdom, leading to the realization of the One. Prajnajati, an illumined one who has attained divine knowledge. Prakriti, nature or the primal substance of nature, one of the two fundamental bases of the conception of the universe advanced by the Sankhya philosophy of Kapila, the source of the material and mental phases of the universe, as distinguished from the spiritual basis, or Prasha. Prana, the universal principle of energy, also used to designate the vital force of the body, which is a manifestation of the universal prana. Pranayama, the science of control of the prana, principally by means of the breath, the fourth step of Patanjali's yoga system. Prasankayana, contemplation of the abstract. Pratibha, illumination by divine wisdom. Prataka, a symbol, or image, of Brahman, the infinite being. Pratama, the use of images of the gods as symbols for the Supreme Being. The worship before these symbols is intended as the worship of the Supreme Being, in some of its phases, and is not idolatry as the term is generally understood. Pratavshaya, the sense organs. Pratyahara, control of the senses, a part of the yoga discipline and practice, the fifth step of the yoga of Patanjali, which consists in making the mind introspective, that is, turning it back on itself, and releasing it from the power of outward impressions. Pratyagatman, the state of internal self-illumination, or spiritual knowing. Pratyaksham, perception by means of the illuminated consciousness, and without the necessity of sense organs. Prathivi, solid matter, earth, cohesive mass. Puraka, inhalation of the breath. Prasha, the spiritual principle, the spirit. See lesson on the Sankhya system. Pravimamsa, prior investigation, one of the three minor systems of Hindu philosophy. Raga, attachment of the senses. Raja, royal chief, superior, superlative. Raja Yoga, the royal yoga, superlative yoga, form of yoga advocated by the yoga school of Patanjali and others, which has for its object the development of the psychic and spiritual faculties, and the control of the mind. See lesson on the yoga system. Rajas, activity, energy, lively, one of the three gunas. See lesson on the Sankhya system. Rama, a celebrated ancient Hindu sage and teacher, regarded as an incarnation or avatar of Krishna. Richaka, exhalation of the breath. Rigveda, the oldest part of the Vedas, and which is composed principally of hymns, etc. Rishi, a great sage or teacher who has attained the stage of Superman, and who is possessed of the power of supersense perception. Ryudra, the name formerly given to Shiva, in the ancient mythology. Saguna, possessing qualities. Sahasrara, the final lotus, situated in the brain, described in Patanjali's yoga system, sometimes regarded as the brain itself, the thousand-petaled lotus. Sakti, power, authority. Sama, the form of mental control which consists in directing the mind inward, and preventing it from externalizing. Samadhi, transcendental contemplation, or ecstasy, cosmic consciousness, a supernormal state produced by meditation, concentration, etc. The eighth step of Patanjali's yoga system. Samanya, the principle of generality, or genus. Samapati, the figurative term, meaning the casket of treasures, used by the yogins to describe the stages of meditation. Samavaya, the principle of coherence. Samprajnata, the preliminary stage of samadhi, or superconsciousness resulting from yoga meditation, etc. Samsara, the world of phenomenal existence, the chain of rebirth, the cycle of existences used particularly to distinguish the universe of manifestation and phenomena from the real existence which lies behind and under it. Samskaras, the impression in the mind stuff that results in fixing habits. Samyana, a term used to designate the three higher steps in Patanjali's yoga, known as dharana, dhyana, and samadhi, or, in other words, the steps of control of the mind, meditation, and transcendental contemplation. Collectively the word means restraint or control. Sanadam, the third stage of samadhi, or superconsciousness. Sanatana, the external religion of India. Sankaracharya, a great Hindu teacher who lived about AD 800, and who was the leading expounder and commentator of the Vedanta. Sankhya, the great system of Hindu philosophy founded by Kapila about 700 BC, the leading features of which are the conception of the dual principles of Purusha, or spirit, and Prakriti, or nature, or universal creative energy. See lesson on the Sankhya system. Sannyasa, renunciation, non-worldliness, the forsaking of position, name, possessions, family, and all connected with the world of sense attraction. Sannyasin, a follower of sannyasa, an ascetic, one who forsakes all and follows the spirit. Saturday, absolute existence, one of the terms applied to the absolute Brahman, or that. Satchitananda, a term applied to the absolute, Brahman or that, consisting of three terms, and meaning absolute existence or being, absolute wisdom and knowledge, absolute bliss or happiness. Sattvas, one of the three gunas, the guna of brightness, goodness, and light. See the lesson on the Sankhya system. Siddhanta, the knowledge of decision, positive knowledge. Siddhas, yogis who have attained semi-divine powers, through superconscious knowledge, etc. Siddhas, the supernormal powers of the Siddhas. Sishya, a student, neophyte, or disciple of a guru. Akila, Shaktas, worshippers of Shakti. Shakti, the principle of life energy or cosmic energy, or nature. Shaivas, the cult of Shiva worshippers. Shiva, or Shiva, the third principle of the Hindu Trinity, representing the destroying or changing principle, also the conception of the supreme being of the Shaivas. See lessons on the religions of India. Sloka, a verse of a poem or sacred writing. Smriti, memory, also a term sometimes applied to the sacred books outside of the Vedas, which have been transmitted in the past by memory. Saham, a term meaning I am he, used by the enthusiastic Bhakti yogis, and others, and implying the perception of their relation to Brahman, or that equivalent to the radical Sufi statement of I am God himself. Soma, the nectar of the ancient gods, an Indian plant. Sravana, the supersensuous hearing claimed to be developed by the yoga practices clairaudience. Shri, or Shri, a term meaning blessed one, or holy one, applied to the great sages and teachers of India by their followers. Sthula Sharira, the gross physical body, as distinguished from the Linga Sharira, or subtle body, or etheric double. Sunyavada, the doctrine that behind the phenomenal world there is an infinite void, or nothing, a form of philosophical nihilism. Sushupti, the state of profound, dreamless sleep. Sushuma, the canal running through the center of the spinal cord, and through which the Kundalini ascends in the yogi practices. See the lesson on the yoga system. Svadhisthana, the second lotus of the yoga system of Patanjali, and which is situated back of the navel. Swami, a spiritual teacher. Tadayata, a state of exaltation common to certain of the advanced Bhakti yogis, in which the man loses his sense of personality and feels that he is merged with the Lord's radiation or light by reason of his love of God. Tamas. Darkness. One of the gunas, the guna of sloth, ignorance, and slowness. See lesson on the Sankhya system, Tanamatras. Subtle or fine elements of nature, from which the gross elements proceed. Tapas. Ascetic practices for controlling the body by fasting, austerities, self-torture, etc. Tattvamasa, a term meaning that thou art, used by Hindu teachers to their students, and which informs them of their relationship with Brahman, through the indwelling spirit. Tattvas, principles, categories, ultimate classes, truths. Tejas, the element of fire. Trishna, desire, thirst, longing, craving. Turiya, the highest state of consciousness. Tyaga, renunciation of the lower for the higher. Udana, nerve current controlling the speech organs. Agatha, the awakening of the Kundalini. Upadana, Upanishads, the later sacred books of India. Upaya, the state of intense abstraction, or meditation upon abstract things. Abstract meditation, or meditation upon nothing. Uttaramimamsa, a term applied to the Vedanta system of Hindu philosophy, and meaning subsequent investigation, or investigation of the subsequent part, the investigation applying to the Vedas. Vada, knowledge by argument, or discussion. Vairāgyam, renunciation of, and non-attachment to, the objects or allurement of the senses. Vaishaka, the school or system of Hindu philosophy founded by Canada, one of the distinguishing features of which is the atomic theory. See lesson on the three minor systems. Vaishnavas, the disciples and worshippers of Vishnu, or Krishna, one of the leading religious sects of India. See lessons on the religions of India. Varuna, a god in the ancient Hindu mythology. Vasudeva, a manifestation of the infinite being. Vayu, the principle of air. Vedana, the supersensuous faculty of feeling developed by the yogis. Vedas, the sacred books of India. See latter part of this lesson. Vedanta, the great system of Hindu philosophy, the distinguishing feature of which is idealism. See lesson on the Vedanta system. Vinaya, wisdom, knowledge, science. Vimoksha, absolute freedom from desire, emancipation. Virya, strength, vitality, energy, virility. Vishnu, the first principle of the Hindu Trinity, the preservative principle of deity of whom Krishna was an avatar. The conception of Vishnu and Krishna is often identical. See the lessons on the religions of India. Visha, atomic individuality. Vishishadvaita, the branch of the Vedanta which holds to the conception of qualified non-dualism, and which teaches that the individual soul is a part of God. See lesson on the Vedanta system. Vishishtadvaitan, a disciple or follower of Vishishtadvaita. Vivekananda, a term meaning bliss and discrimination, the name adopted by a celebrated Hindu Advaitist teacher who visited America in 1893. Viveka, discrimination between the true and the false. Vishuddha, the fifth lotus of the Yoga of Patanjali, and which is situated in the Sushumna, back of the throat. Vritti, a whirlpool, vortex, or wave action in the chitta or mind's tough mental activity or thought action. Vyana, the nerve currents of the physical body. Vyasa, an ancient Hindu teacher who is held to be the author of the Mahabharata, and of the aphorisms of the Uttaramimamsa or Vedanta. Vyasa Sutras, the aphorisms of Vyasa. Vathana, arousing or awakening from meditation, or concentration. Yama, self-control, the first step in Patanjali's yoga system. Yoga, a term meaning yoking, joining, etc., also meaning mental control and advancement resulting therefrom, the name of the yoga system of Hindu philosophy established by Patanjali. See lesson on the yoga system. Yogi, or yogin, a follower of yoga, a practitioner of the yoga methods, or in a more general sense, one who seeks union, realization, and attainment by means of wisdom, divine love, action, or control, or by all. Special message 12. For this month we invite you to partake of the fragments of the bread of truth, baked from the flour of wisdom, by the Hindu sages of old. I know the one to be the all, the great self, the truth, all effulgence, transcending all darkness. Knowing this, one can transcend even death. As oil is found in sesame seeds, as ghee is found in curds, as water is found in the streams, as fire is found in the flame, so is the one self seen in the self by him who tries to realize it through universal love and perfect control over mind and body. 3 are the supports of religion: renunciation, knowledge, and compassion. Beyond desire, without parts, above egoism, being and non-being, whatever thou art, still thou canst not escape being the one. Thou protectest, destroyest, givest, shinest, speakest, though ever free from egoism. Wonderful is the power of illusion which concealeth thee, and yet revealeth thee, but more wonderful still art thou beyond the illusion. Then, when truth was still unmanifest, it, of itself, became manifest through name and form, endowing everything with this or that name, and this or that form. All things even until now are defined by some name and some form. This is the import of its entering into the objective, formed and evolved from itself. In dreams there are in reality no chariots, no horses, not even the course on which the chariot may run, and yet all these are mentally created in a moment. There are in reality no joys, no pleasures, no delights, and yet all are mentally seen and felt at the instant. There are in reality no ponds, no lakes, no rivers, and yet all are there at the merest thought. The power of evolving any number of forms from itself is the creative power of the One. This, therefore, is the truth that as from fire well lighted, fiery sparks flow off in every direction by the thousands, so do all beings of every variety come out, O Great One, from the ever immutable, and are resolved also into the same. It is the self-illumined, formless spirit of truth, all within and all without, unborn, without breath, without mortal mind, above all conditions, beyond the eternal cause of the phenomenal and relative objective. Our meditation for the coming month is, there is but one truth, men call it by many names, above time and beyond space, and free from causation, ever dwelleth the one that is all.